ये कश्मीर लाइफ है और मैं हूं मसूद हुसैन। इस वक्त हम प्रोफेसर विजय लक्ष्मी कुमार के साथ मैं मुखातिब हूं, बात कर रहा हूं। ये बहुत बड़ा नाम है पूरे मुल्क में साइकेट्री के हवाले से, और इनके नाम पर एक ग्लोबल अवार्ड भी है। इनका काम हर तरफ और हर फील्ड में सराहा जा रहा है। तो रिसेंटली आज ये एक तशरीफ़ लाई थी एक खुसूसी प्रोग्राम के हवाले से श्रीनगर में, तो इन्होंने एक ज़बरदस्त स्पीच की सुसाइड के हवाले से। तो मैं सुसाइड के हवाले से ही इनसे ये पूछना चाहूँगा। मैम, वेलकम टू कश्मीर लाइव फॉर दिस क्विक ब्रॉडकास्ट।
Thank you very much.
I just want to know the state and status of suicides and how it has shifted over the years, as you mentioned in your program, in your speech, that this trend is shifting in geographies, and it is reasoning while not being very explained, can't be explained, but there are certain things that have been understood empirically, or there are other parameters you are using in judging and understanding things. So what are these?
See, definitely if you look at it, the suicide rate in India has increased in the last 15 years. About 15 years ago, the suicide rate we normally say is how many deaths per lakh of population. It was around 7. Now, even according to the National Crime Records Bureau, which is kind of an under-reporting, even then it is 12.4. It has continuously increased. Actually, during the last 2 years after COVID, the suicide rate has increased dramatically in India. And what is sad is about 40-50% of suicides in our country is below the age of 30. So we are losing young lives. It's not only lost to the family but also to the country. And young females we are seeing they have the highest suicide rate in our country. Females between 18 and 25, they have the highest suicide rate in our country. When it comes to Jammu and Kashmir, when compared to the southern state, Jammu and Kashmir has a low suicide rate of less than 5 per 100,000. But what is disconcerting is in the last 7 years, the suicide rate in Jammu and Kashmir has also been rising. From almost 1 or less than 1, it has come up to 4.55 now. So it is disconcerting, considering that Jammu and Kashmir has been exposed to so much trauma and so much of natural and man-made disasters. Both combined together have made the young people very vulnerable.
In your lecture, you made very interesting. It was data-driven. It was very impressive. In your lecture, you talked about that south of India tops in suicide
Yes.
rate, and the middle part of India is in the middle of it, and north is at the lowest side of it.
Yeah.
What happens? It is just.
I think there are 2-3 explanations for that. One is, we have data to prove that the southern states, the literacy rate is very high, education is very high. But when you have a higher education, your expectation also goes up. When your expectation also goes up, you are not able to take the disappointments. That's one thing. The second thing is, in the northern part of the country, the emotions are much more expressed outside. Whereas in the southern part of the country, they internalize the emotions more. So, if you see a North Indian family coming after 5 years, there will be so many hugs and kisses and so on. But in South India, they will say, yes, come, like that. So, they internalize their emotions. The other thing is, the northern states like Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, they have been exposed to a lot of invasions from Persia and other countries. So their anger is directed outwards. They have more aggression. So these states have higher homicide rates. Whereas the southern states, the peninsular India has never been invaded by any foreign people. So their aggression is all turned inwards. Okay. So homicide rates are higher in the northern states, and suicide rates are higher in the southern states, because suicide, if psychologically we say, it is murder at the 180th degree. You turn the anger in. So that these are all the explanations, but we really don't have the answer.
You said in your this lecture that women are more they suffer from
Depression
more, but men are less prone to depression. But it is being seen that men are top. They succeed in suicides. In comparison to women who attempt and are saved.
Yes.
So the numbers are more in men.
Yes.
It is a paradox. As you said, it is a paradox.
It is a paradox, and this could be because of three reasons. One reason is men they choose violent methods like hanging, shooting, jumping, whereas majority of the women, they choose poisoning, okay, and majority of them are able to be taken to the hospital and they are able to survive the attempt. The second thing is, the fact is, men have difficulty in going and telling anybody that they have दिमाग को तो problem है, but women are able to express their problems much more easily, and they seek help more than men, whereas women are able to seek help. And the third biggest factor is, I said the women in India between 15 and 30 have the highest suicide rate, but after 30 the suicide rate comes down 50% for women, and that is because by 30 majority of the Indian women are married, and having one child protects them, because even if the situation is bad, if the husband is an alcoholic or even if the mother-in-law is bad, the fact that I have to look after my child protects her.
When you showed that, exhibited that map, the movement of the trend, suicide from Europe to India, and then you concluded empirically that India has taken over China.
Yes, that's true. China had a higher rate than India, both in terms of number and rate, but they have been able to reduce it, mainly by reducing the suicide in their rural women, whereas we have not been able to do that. So actually the suicide rate in India is increasing, and particularly in young people and young women also.
Does faith play any role in managing suicide mass?
Yes, absolutely. Spirituality and religiosity have a significant role in reducing suicide. If we have a belief in religion or spirituality, whatever religion it is, it does definitely prevent suicide. For example, and what the spiritual teachings also say. For example, Quran strictly forbids suicides. So anywhere in the world you'll find that Muslims have the lowest suicide rate, which could also be an explanation why J&K has a low suicide rate. Everywhere in the world, the Muslim countries have the lowest suicide rate. People used to say that it is because it is not reported because of a religious and cultural thing, it is not reported. But Muslims living in developed countries like USA, Canada, London, even there their suicide rates are very less. But one thing is disturbing is that in some of the Middle Eastern countries, in the last 5 years, we see, particularly in countries like Afghanistan, we see an increase in young women's suicides.
In conclusion of this brief conversation, I'd like to ask you that Kashmir is passing through a very special, different, very peculiar, traumatic phase for the last 3 decades especially. So we have we have a huge basket. We have PSTD, we have bipolar, we have many things that we're discussing, that many doctors and scientists talked about. Are these issues going to increase suicide rate in coming days, or we should be very positive that
exposure to trauma and violence definitely increases suicide. We know, we have enough research to show that any exposure to trauma and violence increases suicide. But at the same time, if you are able to have good family connections, then that buffers it. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing is in even in Kashmir, a lot of people are using social media, okay, and that is being associated with increased suicide. So my request to people in Kashmir would be, please limit the social media usage of your children. They have already are vulnerable because they are exposed to trauma and violence, and the only way to mitigate it is to have positive relationship with parents and children and friend and physical activity.
Do you believe that trauma is something that is...
And religious faith.
Yes. Do you believe that trauma is getting transferred as part of genetic inheritance?
See, what has been shown is that when a child is exposed to trauma and violence at a young age, it has an impact on them, and even if their children are not exposed to trauma and violence, they carry that vulnerability.
Does it shift from generation to generation?
Yes, there is intergenerational trauma.
Have there been not many studies, or it is just being...
Not many studies, but there are enough studies.
Professor Kumar, thank you. So nice of you
Thank
for agreeing to a brief conversation. Thank you, and so nice of you. So nice of you.